So we have an update here on the Al Jazeera reporter that was assassinated by Israeli forces. This, believe it or not, is in CNN. They were shooting directly at the journalists. New evidence suggests Shireen Abu Akleh was killed in targeted attack by Israeli forces. Several shots ring out in quick succession, cutting through a clear blue spring morning in Jenin in the West Bank. Crack, 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 crack. The cameraman filming the scene, scrambles backwards to take cover behind a low concrete wall. Then a man cries out in Arabic, "Injured! Shireen, Shireen, oh man, Shireen, ambulance." When the camera operator pans around the corner, Al Jazeera journalist Shireen Abu Akleh can be seen lying motionless, face down on the ground, as another Palestinian reporter, Shatha Hanesha, I'm so sorry if I'm butchering any of these names, crouches down beside her, using a tree trunk for cover. Hanesha reaches out and tries to rouse her as gunshots continue. There's no response. Both women are wearing helmets and blue protective vests marked press. In the moments that follow, a man in a white t-shirt makes several attempts to move Abu Akleh, but is forced back repeatedly by gunfire. Finally, after a few long minutes, he manages to drag her body from the street. The shaky video filmed by Al Jazeera cameraman Majdi Banura captures the scene when Abu Akleh was a 51-year-old Palestinian-American was killed by a bullet to the head at around 6:30 a.m. on May 11th. She had been standing with a group of journalists near the entrance of Jenin refugee camp, where they had come to cover an Israeli raid. While the footage does not show Abu Akleh being shot, eyewitnesses told CNN that they believe Israeli forces on the same street fired deliberately on the reporters in a targeted attack. All of the journalists were wearing protective blue vests that identified them as members of the news media. Quote, "We stood in front of the Israeli military vehicles for about 5 to 10 minutes before we made moves to ensure they saw us. And this is a habit of ours as journalists. We move as a group and we stand in front of them so they know we are journalists, and then we start moving," Hanesha told CNN, describing their cautious approach toward the Israeli army convoy before the gunfire began. So more evidence here that this was a targeted assassination, and, again, hardly surprising, but this is how Israeli troops operate. Not the first time they've targeted journalists. I'm sure a number of you remember about a year ago when they took down a building in Gaza that housed both AP reporters and Al Jazeera reporters. Brazen attack on the press that is obviously reporting on their ethnic cleansing campaign. There was a lot more to this too, and I'm sure a number of you saw, the stories coming out at the time. But Shireen was Christian. And one of during her memorial, Israeli forces were either allowing or disallowing people from entering based upon their religion. They were very literally being asked, "Are you Christian or Muslim?" And if they answered Muslim, they were being turned away. I'm sure a number of you also saw the video of Israeli forces attacking her pallbearers while they were carrying her casket. So real humane stuff, right? We're told that Israel is this bastion of democracy and freedom and progressivism in the Middle East, and this is how they conduct themselves. I don't think ethnic cleansers are in any sense progressive or democratic. I don't know about you guys. I don't think those that kill journalists intentionally, assassinate journalists, I don't think they're progressive or forward-thinking or democratic or anything of the sort. So devastating story here, hardly surprising, deserves more attention than it's even gotten. And, another of these stories that I'm almost at a loss for words, you guys. How much more does it take for the public to get behind the BDS movement and attempting to hold Israel to some form of account? Part of the reason I feel more strongly about this one than I do perhaps other injustices going on around the world is simply that it is our government that is condoning this and allowing this to happen. It is our geopolitical support and our funding and our sending of weapons and our maintaining the Iron Dome for them that allows them to engage in these atrocities and allows them to engage in ethnic cleansing. So this is one that all lefties in the U.S. should be, fighting for. I stand in full solidarity with our Palestinian brothers and sisters and comrades. And, this is just a horrendous story. It's also, I think it's particularly shameful that the press is so reluctant to cover this, because their very profession, the core of their profession, is at stake here. It's a bit like the Assange story to me, where it's like, how as a journalist can you sit there and not highlight that, or even worse, side with the US government against Assange, when what you're basically doing is condemning your own profession to being oppressed and being unable to do its job? There's just a sort of an added layer of shame, I think, and condemnation, deserved condemnation, that comes with that. So horrendous story, more information coming out on that, and we'll keep up with it as that continues to develop as well.